Alright, so my batteries finally came in, and I finished up some of the wiring like I said I was going to do. Excuse me. Um, for the majority, it's sort of like what I showed and talked about in the last couple of videos, but we'll go over. There was a few setbacks and changes. First things first. Let's see. Batteries. Back in the day, this car ran on these. All right. So uh, these here, this was a 1200 milliamp, 7.2 volt. But the big thing about this is it's NiCad. All right. Trying to find one of these nowadays is unbelievably hard. NiCads, they're just, I guess, so such old technology. It's hard. I know a lot of people are racing lipos or lipos or whatever you call them, but without an ESC in here so that the lipo doesn't drop below where it needs to, that's not an option. I didn't want to go with an ESC. I wanted to go old school with the original technology. So I looked high and low. I couldn't find any of those NiCads. So the best thing I could come up with was a nickel metal hydride. And so this is what I have now, 6 cell. And what's funny is it came with plastic all around it and fancy caps and wires coming out of the end of it and all that. But then it was so big it wouldn't fit in the car. So I ended up going back to the book, and in the book itself it shows and talks about batteries and how to do your batteries, how to make them, because back in the day, you actually got cells and taped them together and made them, soldered the ends onto them and taped them and put them in. So I was like, well, I'll just sort of do the same thing. So I cut the batteries out of the casing, and then I resoldered the connectors. So instead of coming out of the end, I laid down and brought them around, soldering them back up, and then wrapped them back with tape so that this battery would fit inside the battery tray. And now it will fit in there really good. And then as a bonus, it turned out these were sort of a goldish color, so it actually fit pretty decently with the color scheme. I bought two of them and a charger, so now I can run one and charge one. Getting down to what we talked about before, where I talked about putting my bumpers on. I got all them on, and the battery tray, putting it in with the little bumper on the bottom. I did take care of that. One thing else that I did just to give me some wiggle room with this though was I went ahead and I cut the battery tray. I figured, hey, I've already modified it by dyeing it, so I took it, and as you can see here, I cut the end of it off on both sides. Move that out of the way. I did that one as well. All right. So now that gave me just a couple of millimeters, the width of this plastic on each end, now to make sure that my battery would go in there without any incident. And it fits like a champ, so that was great. The next thing we talked about was the coiling of the wiring and how I dressed that up. So did the best I could, but batteries came in and they were a two-prong connector, as you can see here. My old wiring harness that I was going to use, or the new one that I was going to use that I had wrapped up, was a 3-pin wiring harness, so I couldn't really use that. So I ended up having to take the old one off of the buggy that I had originally and solder it onto here. So this is a new resistor and everything else is new, but this one little hookup is back from the original. I did mount the receiver here where I talked about doing that. So there is the receiver, this mount on the back of the shock tower. Here is the new resistor here and the slide control on there. So as you can see, I got that wired and soldered up to the servo down there like we had talked about, and I showed you how that was going to work. This is the bypass. So way over here is off, and then when you start turning it on, this rotates this direction. Every little rod that it hits, it gets faster and faster, more speed, less resistance, and then it will eventually hit this piece, which is soldered here directly over to the battery, so then it's full power and runs like a screaming scalded cat. That wire, it comes in the factory orange, and I just happen to have some orange clips, so I just clipped it on around, and it runs all the way through, and then I took advantage of that hole that's right here going through the bulkhead and ran my clip back here to my motor, which I've already mounted as well. So there's my motor with the caps on it to keep the noise down, and it has the original wiring on it. I didn't mess up with any of that. Just put a new holder on it that I dyed black, so that looks really nice. So there's that, and it's all lined up with the spur gear. They say to line those up just so that you can barely move this, and see that just a little bit of wiggle room because you don't want them to bind, so just that little bit. And then as I turn that, my wheels will turn. You can see pretty freaking awesome. All right, so that was done. I was able to put the antenna where I talked about, so it's right there. What else is there? This, again, coiled the wires up, so some of them have slight coiling, some of them have a lot. This one got stretched out a little bit because it's coming from the front and it has to go over the battery, but it's still intact and looks nice. This plugs directly into the battery, so it just lays right up here on top. This one is the one going to the speed control, so out of here goes to speed. And then I did talk about putting my switch right here, but the wires were too small and I would have had to add to them, and I didn't want to go through that. So I just mounted my switch right there. I don't know if you could actually see that or not. It is right there. Right there. There you go. So right there, right on top. So I just reached down and flick that on and off. And all I did, I cheated. I just super glued that bad boy right to the top of the servo. So it ain't going anywhere, and it's real easy to get to, just right from the top. Everything else is soldered up. My old one, I did notice, was not this loose. This moves around on this bracket, but I guess that's not a bad thing, because when this starts to rotate and move, it will find purchase and good home. If that was solid in two flat pieces having to make connection on an arc, they could not make very good connection. So since this is pushing against it with a spring, that being able to move like that will always find good purchase there. So actually that's not too bad. I think that was it. Like I said, everything got mounted under here just like we talked about. So nothing new there. I was really happy with all that. I did take this off of the back here because I had to get that wire through the bulkhead, through that hole. So I'll be putting that back on, and that'll go there. And then, of course, again, the battery fits in just beautifully now that the battery has been redone, and also the battery trays. I got plenty of room to drop the battery in there. So one thing as an added precaution that I did super glue these points here that came through those little screws. So once I folded them in, I put a little dab of super glue on each one of them, like I talked about. And then I just put double layers of black electrical tape over it, just for the little safety aspect of those happen to be rubbing on here. So I just, better safe than sorry. So those will drop in there just like that. And then these plug together. And then we have power. And then we take, it didn't clip all the way. I think something's stuck in my clip or something. That's weird. I think one of those is riding up. There we go. Alright, I wasn't holding my tongue right, I guess. So there's that. And then, again, they can be brought down around either way, however we want to move them. There's enough play. The battery clips I talked about before, they're carbon fiber. If I ever get my hands on a single white one of these, I'm putting white ones back on. I think they'll look a lot better with the white and black theme. I ordered these thinking they were just going to be black. And they came out carbon fiber. Beggars can't be choosers at this point. I want to run my car. I got to hold the battery down. I'm going to use them, but I have that one white one. And if I get my hands on another white one, then that's what I'm going to do. But anyway, those will go on there. And the screw pack that I got, that I've already complained about several times, did not come with these screws, because these screws came in a set. One was a regular one and one has a little hole through it so you could put a pin in it. So I took the old ones that I had, which were these, and I cleaned them up on a wire brush, and I got some gold paint and I painted the caps so when they're in there you'll be able to see that. And then the little pins for them, I did the same thing. I cleaned them up and then painted them with some gold paint, so those will slide right in there just like that. And then that'll go on, hold the battery in. I also painted the ones for the top of the buggy, so those are gold now as well. All right, so I'm gonna mount that together, and then I'm gonna give it a little test and make sure everything's good. And then possibly tomorrow I'll be working on cutting out the clear top and putting it on. I know somebody is out there probably thinking, hey, what happened to these front nose rods for the stability? I do have them. They're cleaned up. They're ready to go on, but the anti-roll bar goes underneath them, and I didn't want that struggle, so I already have the screws and the washers in, but my old roll bar was way bent out of whack so badly, so I ordered a new one, and I'm waiting on that to come in. After I get that in and installed, then I'll put these bars on, and then we'll be good. Still looking out for a rear roll bar. It goes back here. That's what these screws are for. That roll bar slides in this little cutout that's right here. I don't know if, let me move this, I don't want to drop it. I don't know if y'all can see that very well, but right here on the bulkhead it's cut. See that little notch right there? So a bar slides down in there this way, like my finger's going down in here, and it runs all the way across here, and these two, this one and this one, hold it down just like these two hold the front one down. And it comes all the way out here, and then you can bend it back, and I've seen people bend them all the way back and screw holes into the back of these A-arms and do it that way. I've got some other options I'm looking at though, like right here, you've got these turnbuckles on here. I can get some really long ones, and then this thread will continue out the back, and then I can hook them up to there and bring them over. Or, better yet, I may just end up using that little hole right there. See that little hole that's still left in the front because the shock went in one after? So I still have a free hole right there on each side. So I might end up using that for the rear one. And whatever I decide, I'll shoot that video on that one and show that when I'm done. So all in all, we are getting down to the wire, and I'm looking forward to hearing this thing wake up and come back alive.